So, we've taken a look at what goes into an angry review. If you haven't seen my Art of Angry Reviews video, there's a link in the description. But now it's time to take a look at how angry reviews have changed since those early days of the internet's favourite form of criticism. There's no way around it. You just cannot talk about angry reviewing without bringing up something which has become a bit of a dirty word in recent times. Channel Awesome. There's no getting around it. I used to be a proud member of this website, until certain things came to light. But we're not going to talk about that yet, because before you can talk about the fall of something, you have to consider the climb. But before the climb even began, there was already another hiker on the mountain. Okay, I'm fed up with this metaphor already, so I'm going to stop. What I'm talking about is the angry video game nerd, a character created by James Rolfe in May 2004. With his first few reviews of the NES games Simon's Quest, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the Karate Kid, James never thought that anything would come of it. Certainly not to the extent that it has done anyway, having built a career over 15 years. That's right, 15 years. Feel old yet? Most TV series don't last that long, and if they do, then most of the original fan base grow to resent it. But there's something about the AVGN which has just stuck with people. And people lurking on the depths of the internet saw that, and recognised it. No, I'm not talking about the irate gamer. I'm talking about that dude who used to make 5-second movies. Yeah, him. That guy. He saw potential in the angry gamer persona and thought, hey, I can do that! But with movies. Doug Walker, fresh from being booted off of YouTube countless times for making 5-second movies, threw together a short review of the Michael Bay movie Transformers, rating it positively. And it wasn't nostalgic at the time. I can't really see how he came about the name Nostalgia Critic, to be honest. But it wasn't until the NC review of the Super Mario Bros. Movie when things really began to take off. It was the perfect target for this type of movie. A so bad it's great movie with more than enough material to pick at. For me, this is the review which solidified what the angry movie review would come to be. Intro, clip, comment, voiceover, joke. I'm not claiming that Doug was the first to do it. There were, of course, other movie reviewers online at the time, but none of them found an audience as quickly or as dedicated as Doug. Being all too familiar with the problems faced by using copyrighted content on YouTube and the persistent takedowns of the 5-second movie accounts, Doug decided to do something about it, and made the absolutely correct decision to sign away the rights to the Nostalgia Critic character, presumably with some of his soul and plenty of dignity alongside it, and Channel Awesome was created, or that guy with the glasses as it was known in those days. And in what turned out to be a great marketing move for the site, Doug called out the nerd, who responded, and both grew as a result of the ensuing clash, ending with the pair filming a fight in the nerd's basement, which I guess you could consider the video reviewer's equivalent of civil war at the time. As the NC's following grew, so did the fans' unquenchable thirst for more. More. And to keep the fans at bay, Channel Awesome created a contest to find another Nostalgia Critic. But there was a twist. This one is a girl who can review girl things, because a dumb, stupid, strapping, manly man can't review girl things like Pocahontas or the Spice Girls. No, apparently those movies go over anybody's head unless you have a vagina. But regardless, the contest brought some vagina havers into the talent pool, and the site continued to grow. It was around this time that Channel Awesome began putting their content on Rever, a potential YouTube destroyer. They didn't bow down to the big studio bullies knocking at the door with copyright violation notices. They were there to support the creators and pay them well, and they shut down in 2011, taking along with them thousands upon thousands of owed ad revenue. No worries, Blip TV is here to save the day. In fact, they're even better. They're the answers to our prayers. So, just as the NC had been inspired by the AVGN, the NC resulted in its own inspirations. And in just a few short years, over 400 million people had created their own versions of the Nostalgia Critic, with over half of them being picked up by the site itself as featured content creators. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but it can't have been far off. A lot of the NC-inspired creators even went as far as having similar names, copying the "that X in the X" style. But whether the name was similar or not, there was always one thing which never changed. Each new creator brought onto the site was a twist on the Nostalgia Critic format. Nostalgia Critic but a girl, Nostalgia Critic for comics, Nostalgia Critic for blockbusters, Nostalgia Critic for horror movies, Nostalgia Critic for porn, Nostalgia Critic for sequels, Nostalgia Critic for games. Wait, we've gone full circle. And each followed that same basic formula. Intro, clip, comment, voiceover, repeat. Some tried to mix things up by introducing storylines, which Doug would then go on to do himself later. But everyone was basically just Nostalgia Critic Mark II. Then in 2009, to celebrate the site's first birthday and with every that gopher in a suit brought onto the site, a crossover brawl was filmed in a conference room in a hotel. But that didn't matter, it was the Avengers-level crossover that we didn't know we needed. The brawl was filmed as a result of a money-raising livestream encouraging viewers to donate towards the project. And to be fair to Channel Awesome, they did pump a lot of money into that special, even flying people out who barely even made a cameo. In fact, one guy, Lee Is Still Gaming, flew out despite his entire appearance being still frames of himself. These guys must have had money to burn. At its peak, Channel Awesome was making so much money in ad revenue and site ads it was able to fund 3 feature-length movies. The anniversary movies. Works of art, I'm sure you'll agree. 2010's Kick-Assy was shot and released while the site was still growing, and something like that had not been attempted before. At least not by a bunch of internet nerds whose previous filmmaking experience had been making movie reviews in their bedroom. This was on another scale, not quite the professional movie set experience that other internet creators would go on to have, but it was something. And the cast and crew were thrilled to be on set 12 hours a day in the blistering heat, being directed by a first-time director whose vision was to literally make himself the ruler of a nation. And people say that Doug Walker is narcissistic. Regardless of how Kick-Assy had turned out, it did well enough so that the site could justify 2011's Suburban Nights, which barely completed filming with people still holding on to their sanities. And then came 2012's To Boldly Flee, which had some creators walking away from the set vowing never to work with Doug ever again. By the early 2010s, the 10s, did we ever agree on a name for that decade? Anyway, by the early 10s, Screw Attack and Channel Awesome were the places to go for angry reviews. I mean, why go anywhere else when you have all your cut and paste content neatly organised right there for you without the threat of being taken away by the copyright strike overlords? But then, in 2012, with Channel Awesome's 4th anniversary movie To Boldly Flee, came a twist ending that nobody saw coming. Not even the legions of content creators on Channel Awesome itself. Yes, after 4 years of creating weekly movie reviews, Doug decided to hang up his red tie and retire the Nostalgia Critic. Yep, that's right. On a site built around the success of the Nostalgia Critic, it was decided that the cash cow would be stopped. Just like that. Cold turkey. By 2012, YouTube was the biggest video site in the world, but with so many channels feeling the wrath of copyright claim banhammers, how would Channel Awesome compete in that market if they had so much fodder that they could potentially have taken down? Enter Demo Reel, the answer to all of Channel Awesome's problems. Oh wait, sorry, I mean the creation of all of Channel Awesome's problems. With the death of the Nostalgia Critic also came the death of Channel Awesome's views. People didn't really come to the site for Doug, to see what he was doing. The middling view counts on his other shows prove that much. They came for the Nostalgia Critic, but there'll be more time to talk about Demo Reel later.
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. I remember, so you don't have to. You know, walking down the aisle, I noticed something.
There's a strange phenomenon when it comes to internet audiences. When people find a channel they like, the one thing they appreciate most is consistency. If you do movie reviews, that's what they've subscribed for and that's what they want to see. Not you trying a new flavour of Oreo. What is this, they say, and they unsubscribe. Because of this, you make more of the same stuff. Why wouldn't you? If that's what brings in the YouTube bucks, then of course that's what you're gonna do. Which is why Doug retiring the Nostalgia Critic at the peak of its internet popularity will go down as one of the biggest WTF moments in internet history. Even the other producers starring in the movie which announced the Nostalgia Critic's retirement didn't know that it was coming. And they were all mad. Without the draw of the Nostalgia Critic, site traffic plummeted. And because of that, so did the views of the other producers. Nobody was pretending that people came to the site for them. Bar a few larger supporting acts, everybody on the site was a background artist. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening right under everybody's nose. YouTube seemed to be relaxing towards reviews. Yes, channels could still have their ad revenue taken away or still faced a threat of copyright strike. But new movie reviewers were on the rise. Channels were growing fast, hitting tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of subs within months. And the strangest thing? Most of them didn't follow the unofficial rules of the angry review. What in the world is this? That Channel Awesome clip comment style is being completely ignored. How dare they? I mean, they're talking about themes. They're categorizing their comments and critiques. There's a structure. There's a point. Sometimes they're not even being funny. On purpose. In fact, I guess you could say that these new reviews actually are reviews. When you place a Nostalgia Critic against somebody like, let's say, Red Letter Media and compare the two, the differences are striking. Whilst Red Letter Media's criticisms are still being played for laughs, they have a point. They have genuine criticism and an overall argument. They don't just have a blow-by-blow account of every plot point in the movie. It's not just clip after clip, comment after comment, joke after joke. Place a majority of post-2011 reviewers next to the Nostalgia Critic and you'll likely see something similar. Okay, of course there are going to be a few who stick to the trusty old formula, but most of them have created something new, created their own way of talking about movies. And it's once you place these two different producers side by side that there is a revelation, that you've been lied to. Suddenly, you see the light. What Doug has been doing with the Nostalgia Critic hasn't actually been reviews at all. Simply describing what's happening in a movie and then making a joke about it is something completely different altogether. Is it parody? No. Is it satire? No. Then what is it? A paragraph of actual review to conclude isn't enough to categorise yourself as a review. A few sketches awkwardly thrown into the middle doesn't mean you can call yourself parody. The angry movie review is a funny one. The closest you could probably compare it to is commentary, but really it's its own genre. And I think that's why there were so many copycats. Yes, Mystery Science 3000 kind of started the whole thing back in the 80s, until the good old NC came along and everybody realised that nostalgia and comedy is a combination that people are desperate to see. But 5 years later and Doug was done. He'd reviewed what he'd wanted to review. The way he'd retired the character wasn't the most professionally courteous, but at the end of the day, that was his decision to make. In January 2013, less than 6 months after the end of the Nostalgia Critic, money took priority over artistic integrity, and the Nostalgia Critic returned. Also around that time, a Channel Awesome affiliated YouTube channel, the League of Super Critics, arose. Managed and owned by Blip TV themselves, uploading content from some of Channel Awesome's biggest producers, Doug included. But in the time that the Nostalgia Critic was away, audiences flew the nest. They went and found other producers on YouTube who scratched that reviewer itch. But they weren't angry reviewers, they were just reviewers. Yes, some of them may have been angry, choosing to review bad movies, but no longer were they sticking to that formula. And then in August 2015, 2 years after being acquired by Maker Studios, Blip TV shut down, forcing producers who had relied on the platform for so long to try and reinvent themselves on YouTube. But at this point there were so many new content creators who had created their own thing. Suddenly you didn't need a content aggregator site like Channel Awesome. Audiences could find the content they wanted, and then some, all in the same location. And the content was fresh and new. It wasn't restricted to the same old, same old. It allowed for intelligent discussion, new and interesting topics. So, things had changed again. We'd gone from reciting a movie and making individual jokes to talking about a movie as if it was a complete body of work. Talking about topics within a single movie, or a movie series, or a genre. The video review had evolved into the video essay. And this was a strange place to be. As kids, writing an essay for school was the worst. Talk about the themes in Othello? Oh my god, no! Talk about the themes transcending the Lord of the Rings series? Count me in! Let's consider Lindsay Ellis for a moment. Lindsay may have started her reviewer career as the nostalgia chick, but it soon became clear that she didn't want to be held back by lurking in Doug's shadows. Or watching girly things and having the same Control-C, Control-V routine. Yes, she wanted to talk about movies, but also books and pop culture as a whole as well. And she wanted to do it by playing to her own rules. Lindsay managed to claw from the depths of angry reviewer hell and has established herself as one of the most popular video essayists on the internet. Nostalgia chick who, they ask? It took a lot of work and some heavy rebranding, but by picking some popular topics and relying on intelligent criticism as well as humour, Lindsay proved that there can be life after angry reviews. No longer are people relying on the Nostalgia Critic formula. The clip, comment, voiceover routine is a dying art.
That belongs in a museum!
Yes, Channel Awesome is still growing, and the Nostalgia Critic continues to be Channel Awesome's biggest show. But just how long does it have left until it begins clutching at straws? In fact, some would say it's got to that stage already. Doug rarely covers the nostalgic movies which make up 50% of his name. Now he's kind of just critic. With what feels like almost half of a Nostalgia Critic episode devoted to sketches and comedy, it's obvious that Doug once again wants to drop this whole movie reviewing shtick. His heart clearly lies in comedy, and he's using his platform to deliver that, even if it means he has to shoehorn in a review in order for him to be able to do that and make the money they need to afford a set, a crew, and a team of actors. But it's been 11 years. 11 years of critiquing nostalgia. How could he even get away from that now? It would be like Stephen King throwing away the typewriter and being like, I'm a snooker player now. You've more than established yourself as one thing, and it's going to take a hell of a lot of work to claw yourself away from that. It can happen, but going cold turkey from your money spinner isn't exactly the way to do that. And creator burnout has become an ever-pressing issue. James Rolfe has ensured that this hasn't happened to him by drip-feeding other content into his lineup, now only producing AVGN every few months, which his audience of course laps up. And Doug has tried to do editorial-style content in between his longer traditional Nostalgia Critic style, but the feedback is often mixed. Some people have moved on, some people have tried but not stuck to it, some people have quit. That's the nature of the beast we call the internet. Unless you're the AVGN and the NC, things have a habit of changing. So where does this leave the angry review genre, and how much longevity does it have left? So long as the numbers stay positive, then that's all that really matters. But there are other factors that get in the way, muddy the waters, and we'll discuss those next time.